Hello, so now we're going to talk about how to go backwards from what the last video said. The last video we talked about, we were graphing equations based on, or graphing lines based on equations. And now we're going to look at graphs and write the equations for them. So this is going to be, we're going to use the same formula that we were using last time, which is the slope-intercept form, this y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. The easiest way to do these is to start by finding the slope and the y-intercept from the graph, and then just writing your equation, replacing the m with the slope, replacing the b with your y-intercept, and keeping the y and the x. So let's just start going through some examples. The first example, the graph looks like this. Sorry, it might take me a second to kind of get it. Let's see. Okay, so there's our graph. And the easiest thing for me to do is to start by finding my y-intercept, which is b. So the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. The y-axis, remember, is the one that goes up and down. So, where the y and the x-axis, this is your x-axis, where the y and the x-axis meet, that's called the origin, and that's considered 0. So where the y-intercept is, from the origin, you go up to, right? So this is like, right, this point is going up to from the origin. And so what that tells me is that my b is 2, my y-intercept is 2. Now, I want to find my slope. And the easiest way to find a slope is to find 2 points where the line crosses the grid exactly. So we know that it crosses the grid exactly right here at this y-intercept. Great. We want to find one more place where it crosses those grid lines exactly. And right here looks like a pretty good option because it crosses that x-axis right there at -2. So from there, now I want to find the slope. And this is going back to the video from 4.1. But to find the slope, remember the word equation for it is rise over run. So I'm going to start with my leftmost point, and I know that I have to go up 2 and then over 2. So my rise over run for my m would be 2 over 2. Now 2 over 2 can be simplified to just be 1. So my slope is really just 1. And so now I have my y-intercept and my slope. I can actually write my slope-intercept form, which would be y is equal to my m, which we decided was 1, x plus my y-intercept, which is 2. And this is my answer. We keep our y, we keep our x, and we just replace the m and the b. Okay, let's go through the next example. The next example looks like this. Let's see. I am not going to do it justice, but this is what it looks like. You'll be able to see it a little bit better on your, on the actual graph on your paper. But here we go. So the first thing we want to do is find your y-intercept. That's where it crosses the y-axis, which is right here. So that's at 0 because we didn't go up or down, which means, which means that my b is equal to 0. Now I have to find my slope, m, and in order to find m, you want to find 2 points where it crosses the grid exactly. You already have one of those points with your y-intercept, so you just have to find one other point. Now, this is where my graph might look a little bit different than yours, but another place where it crosses exactly, it has to be exactly, is right here. Sorry, I'll do that in orange, is right here. And so now I can find the slope between those 2 points. To find the slope, I'm going to use that word equation, rise over run. So I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over 1, 2, 3, which means my slope would be -4 over 3. The reason why it would be -4 over 3 instead of +4 over 3 is because we went down instead of up. And 4 over 3 cannot be simplified, so that our slope is just negative 4 over 3. So when we write our slope-intercept form, we would say y is equal to m, which is negative 4 over 3, x, plus our b, which is 0. Now, we can leave it like this with the plus 0, or you could just write it as y is equal to negative 4 over 3x, because adding 0 doesn't change anything. So either way, it makes sense. The bottom equation is just a little bit of a simplified version. Okay, let's go to the next example. And the next example is one of those special cases. So the next example looks like this. It's just a straight horizontal line. So when we have a straight horizontal line, I'm going to just tell you, you can use the kind of the slope and the y-intercept way that we've been talking about, but when it's straight horizontal like this, it's always a y equals a number. I'm going to give you another example. If it was a straight vertical line, it would be x equals some number equation. So for this third example where it's y equals some number, really you just have to find where the y-intercept is or where it crosses that y-axis. In this case, it's -1, so my answer would be y is equal to -1. And that is my final answer. Like, that's the simplest version. There's no slope. It's just y equals -1. And like I said on this bottom graph, if you have a straight vertical line, you do the same thing, except for instead of finding where it crosses the y-axis, you find where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, last example is number 4. And let me draw the graph. So once again, I'm not doing great at drawing the graphs, but you'll be able to see them a little bit better on your paper. The first step is to find the y-intercept, which is right here, and that happens to be at -1. Because you had to go down 1 from the origin. So your b in this case is -1. And then we find our slope, which is m. To find the slope, we want to find 2 points where it crosses the grid exactly. What I always do is I look for if it crosses the x and y axis exactly, and if it does, I use those 2 points. If it doesn't, then you have to kind of go back and see what other grid lines it crosses. But in this case, it does cross the x and y axis perfectly, so we can just use that. When we find the slope, we start with the leftmost point. So we're going to start with the y-intercept, and we go up 1 and then over 2, which means my slope would be 1 over 2 or 1/2. Because it's rise or how much I go up, and then run how much I go over. So now we're going to put it in that y equals mx plus b equation. It'll be y equals m, which we decided was 1/2 x, plus your b, which is -1. So this is totally right. We can keep it like this, but I can also simplify it so that that -1 doesn't need to be in parentheses. We can say y equals 1/2 x minus 1, because the plus and the minus right here, the minus wins out and you just say -1. But like I said, either way works. And that is how you write equations based on their graphs.